Hello and thanks everybody for your time and interest in order to listen these audios. So today we have another special guest. His name is Garrett Scott, who is a COO, or better say Chief of an Operation Officer about the Scottsville Auto Group. But also you are one of the few in this province living the experience of a certified passive house building. So can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So we opened our passive house car dealership. I guess it would be basically a little over a year ago. And it currently houses our Scott Subaru, which is our Subaru ship here in Red Deer, Alberta. And, we wanted to do something different. We wanted to, not just build something run of the mill, but also focus on some other points that I think get often overlooked especially in car dealership builds. I can't speak for everything, but there's a lot of inefficiencies that came with the dealership build that we thought we could address, and this opportunity aligned really nicely with our Subaru brand to share this sort of message about passive house. But I think the biggest thing that, apart from definitely consumption savings, there's no doubt about that. We're spending roughly the same amount we were in a building that was half the size or even less than half the size prior to this. And we've also gone from a staff of 12 to about 22 now. So most of our consumption really is human consumption. It's us, it's our laptops, it's our equipment, it's whatever we need to get the job done is really what's driving our energy bills up. It's not building itself. That's the one plus. The other side of it is this whole livability factor. We don't suffer from rapid temperature swings like it happens in some other commercial buildings. We have west-facing exposure, so when the sun picks up in the day, normally in our other buildings it would almost superheat the place compared to what we have now, which we still have the same 16-foot windows on the front of the building, but the way our constant HRV is working, the warm air is circulated around where it's needed, colder air is being moved, that air remains fresher. The pressure and the humidity levels in the building remain constant. So it's really nice from that standpoint. Typically during this type of year where we move into fall, the air gets a little bit drier and the air gets a little bit colder. I noticed with myself getting, that uncomfortable stresses and stuff like that. And I don't have that sitting here in my office today. It's awesome. And we haven't really dealt with a lot of sick days or anything like that. So apart from making an environmental statement, I think the livability actually means passive house is luxury, right? And that's how we look at it.
No, that's a really good approach about what you're mentioning about all the efficiencies that you're talking about, right? And trying to kind of live the experience, not only see everything in books, but you actually put everything together in your building and you're actually living the experience. So something that intrigued me the most is basically where the idea to build a passive house came from. So what was your background in that regard, like from where the conception began?
Okay. What we wanted to do with our Subaru brand was not just build a new dealership, but build a bit of a statement piece. We like to try and grow our reach throughout the province and throughout Western Canada. And we wanted to do something very unique from a marketing level, number one, but two, from, to separate us from the competition and the experience and everything else, do something different. So originally we started with an idea to get somewhere in the realm of a building that was either like a net zero building or something that had maybe LEEDs platinum rating or something of that nature. And then and when we started looking around and trying to figure out which would fit best for us, well, there hadn't been a passive house car dealership yet. And, we felt, okay, now we have the opportunity to make like a world's first statement, almost, from a car dealership standpoint. And that was really cool. So that kind of thinking, we always wanted to do something a little bit more efficient, a little bit more unique that we could be proud of, and that would also, be like a luxury setting too, where we have a better quality building, so we have a better quality, user experience inside. And then we kind of stumbled upon passive because of our architect. They had got us in touch with somebody who had done passive house buildings past, and they took on that challenge. And then, now here we are. We've got this certainly unique, certainly statement piece building, but something that checked all those boxes prior to it with very little knowledge on my part. I didn't actually know what passive house building was before we started this conversation of doing a new Subaru store. That's kind of how we ended up getting there. Was passive checked all the boxes that we wanted to do in terms of, uniqueness, the environmentally friendly side of it, but also the enhanced mobility, and then also take that step to help our marketing angle and our approach to stand out from the rest of the dealership body and have something that's like a world first or a first or the most unique kind of message.
Right. And something that I've done is a little bit of research about from where this conception in order to you to kind of build this building for your car dealership. I think I read somewhere that it took you around 2 years in order to kind of just go through all the design process. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when you got into economics, for example, when it came the conversation about how much your building is going to cost, did you get scared in a bit, or you were, well, whatever it takes, I want to make it work? What was your approach in that regard?
So, address the economic side of it. Yes, there was definitely a few additional costs that came with a passive house building that are outside of what you would have in a conventional build. And I shouldn't really say they're additional costs. There definitely are additional costs, but they're more different costs. You're just buying different equipment. You're insulating in a different fashion, which does cost more in that you're basically adding a third layer of insulation that buildings don't have, right? So there's definitely those additional costs. And we did reach a point where we ended up decontenting some of our building to allow for those costs and to make sure that we reach the passive side of things. We wanted to have a rooftop lounge, but the expense got too big, so we ended up cutting that out so that we could keep going the passive route. Those were kind of a luxury thing, obviously, that we wanted to have. And was it necessary? Absolutely not. It would have been cool to have for sure. But on the other side of things, you mentioned the 2 years of planning. So that's something that we didn't really anticipate. So we had to measure all sorts of crazy metrics, like how many times our doors were opening, whether that be, man doors, for human travel through, or big overhead bay doors for our cars to travel through. We had to measure how many times a day that we anticipated those to be opening, with the, obviously hopeful increase in business and where we were going with this building to how that would play into our overall passive rating. So we ended up having to sacrifice in a few areas there too, where our service drive-through, we were hoping to have a reception area that had 4 doors in it, so we could have 2 lanes of service reception. We ended up going with just 2 and having kind of a unique parking setup inside, as opposed to 2 straight through drive-through lanes. So there's definitely a lot of planning that went into it. And the other thing that I think finishes that off is passive does take a little bit longer to build. So some of our needs, because our Subaru store was growing, and it was growing at a nice rate. And our old building, we had just flat out outgrown it. So we didn't quite get in as soon as we had hoped. There was a few setbacks, mostly weather related, because you have to insulate the outside of your building before you put the kind of the final aesthetic layer on it, or whatever you want to call it, that finishing layer. You can't do that in the rain with installation. So in 2018, the months of September, it rained like almost all month or no. So they couldn't, that really slowed things down like a whole 30 days. And, with the windows, there's only two suppliers that we were able to source really from the whole world. Our windows ended from a company called Gallhofer. That was the doors, windows. That's a unique product that not many glass companies are doing. So when we ordered those pieces, the comment was, well, they kind of get there when they get there. Nobody else does it, and we're going to do our best, but that's all we can do. That slowed things down a bit too. And again, it's just we were committed to doing something different, so you just kind of have to live with that. When you're building something that's a first, it usually isn't first and fastest.
Yeah, for sure. I think this level of commitment, right? Once that you are pre-driven in start this endeavor to do the first in your community, in your local community, of course, like there's a lot of unknowns that you cannot foresee, right? And all of a sudden you are pre-immersed in the situation. You're like, well, let's push forward, right? So in terms of in the design process, like I can understand that you have this amazing idea, and all of a sudden, you got in touch with an architect, which all of a sudden, you got the proper team together. During the process of design, can you say that it was like a smooth process, or you can feel like it was a lot of unknowns that you kind of just trying to kind of figure out as you progressed? What you can tell me about?
I've done now 3 different buildings, and 2 of them were conventional in my career. 3 different dealership buildings. 2 of them were conventional, and now obviously our passive house. And I don't think even in the conventional build everything went smoothly, but I'd say with this passive house build, the areas where we were experiencing resistance or the design plan or the planning slowed down would have been just around the knowledge and having to bring in inexperienced trades when it comes to passive house and explain some of the stuff that our passive house building does. The trades didn't actually believe, right? They were kind of miffed by the whole how it exactly work. And that went right through from, basically to engineers right down to, the framing trades that were putting this together for us. So it was a bit of a learning process, and that learning really took the extra time. And that was where, you had to kind of back on your student's hat, so to speak, and start to brush up on it to make sure everything worked well for me, who was the eventual end user and the guy paying the bills. So that would have been probably our biggest setback during the planning phase, was just making those pushes to make sure everyone was educated properly enough to have a general understanding of how everything was going to work. Because there's there were very forward-thinking people involved in this, and very, very open to passive. And there's people that didn't really quite understand it, so they were, I would just say they would object to some of the things they would hear because they've never seen it done.
Right. So, one of my following questions was the most challenging situation where you went through this system of design? So you can tell that basically the education of all the parties in order to come together to an holistic solution, that was the major struggle, pretty much, the education.
Yeah, I would think it was the implementation of a few things. The biggest point was probably engineers. If you wanted to have a local engineer here, we did. And there was some unique things that passive does that our engineers, I think in some cases in Alberta, maybe we might have we were thinking about over engineering this building because of our extreme cold temperatures that we can have at certain times, and the engineer didn't want to be didn't want to be felt that they were giving us a product that wouldn't perform. So some of these things that we had to wrap our head around slowed it down and made it a little bit I guess uncomfortable at times, but because there was some disagreeing or arguing back and forth, but in the end it all got done. And you know what, we're a year in now. We went through a full winter and we've pretty well gone through a full summer, and we're doing basically exactly as the building is supposed to. We've had a few little setbacks with some unique nuances that come with only passive that I can get into later if you'd like. But other than that, I would say that the best way to summarize it was, getting people who were unfamiliar with passive educated to a point where they were confident that what we were going to implement would actually perform the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, and I know for sure that this type of principles or this type of industry, like passive house concept, like is pretty typical in the West Coast, right? Where the actual weather is way different, right? So a lot of materials are pretty much according to what they're doing. And again, right, that's me like a lot of different type of buildings that I think the learning curve already passed over there. But here in Alberta, when we have like this fluctuant extreme weather, and just trying to kind of being the pioneer on this type of system using like the diverse type of material that we have worked in the past, right? It is hard to kind of just understand how everything needs to come together in order to kind of have a good result, right? So you were saying that, if I'm not mistaken, the dealership opened the doors past year in May 2019, right? So you mentioned a little bit about you already passed all this year process. So I understand that from the point of view of the design, it was certain things that, you were talking about like open and closed doors, right? Because of course, as you have service bay, you have like in and out services procedures during the whole situation, that the design process need to kind of just foreseen a little bit. So we know the other part, which is construction, which was a little bit of a more learning curve, the education of all the trades about the different principles. What about the operation and maintenance? So can you tell me a little bit more about that process during this year that you have operating your building? How have been that working so far, taking into consideration the other car dealerships built in the regular way?
Sure. So operational wise, we have an individual here in our auto group that is responsible for kind of the maintenance of our assets. So buildings, equipment, that sort of thing. And they're also pretty simple as well. Your machinery, yes, it is, and your equipment is more expensive. There's no doubt about that. But this building is a bit of a set it and forget it. There's HRV units. We have wash bay actually froze some of those filters, so we were having some HRV problems. But now that we simply know to go up and check cells, we're doing exactly as they're supposed to. When the filter froze solid, the system shut down, protected itself, and we didn't have any issues. And we did buy more expensive, but no comes to belts and timing and grease pieces or whatever it may be that your traditional equipment has. And that's quite nice. They're all located on our second floor or right on the roof. They're easy to get to. Our maintenance for that system, frankly, we have all the expertise we need right here now to do it ourselves. So it's quite nice that way compared to our more conventional builds for sure. And there's a little, there's some different things like this winter we're going to be installing some wind barriers near our front doors because they are west facing. So when a northwest breaks up, some of the heavier passive doors become quite difficult, and they can be hard to open or close when that happens. So having that wind barrier there, just that's more of a user comfort type thing. It's not a necessity or a maintenance item. It's just the door weighs a whole heck of a lot. And if the wind picked up while you were opening it, it can kind of toss you around if you're not careful. So we just have a couple little things like that to look at. But other than that, I mean, the maintenance stuff is pretty simple. The overhead doors, because of their unique nature, are definitely probably overbuilt as well. And, but they're very high end. They're very easy, but they're very easy to maintain. The reason I say they're overbuilt is these doors are very thick and heavy, and they need to be to keep those passive requirements there. So we just have bigger motors, bigger operating tracks, and that sort of thing to deal with them. But from a maintenance standpoint, it's no more maintenance than any traditional door would have been. It just looks a whole heck of a lot bigger is all.
How do you like it so far? Thank you for being with us. If you want to know about the following part, just keep in touch and follow us for the next part of this episode. And please don't forget to leave me a review on whichever platform that you're using to listen in this podcast. Either good or bad. Remember, Mexicans have thicker skin. You won't hurt my feelings, that's for sure. And better yet, if it has some good criticism, so I can learn from it and improve it, that will be even greater. I understand this hasn't been perfect, but it can be better every time. I recognize your time is valuable, and would like you to enjoy this moment with me as well. Also, if you like what you get from this audio, I will recommend you to be the first to share this info with your friends, so maybe they can get something valuable from it as well. Thanks for listening, and let's meet again soon.